Hello, welcome to the Dank Dungeon. I am Matt, and Corbyn is on his way, allegedly. He's running a little bit behind. He had some things to do at work, I believe. But he will be here shortly. In the meantime, I suppose we can get started, and I can talk about just kind of the concept behind what we're trying to do today, and kind of walk you through what the plan is. So, Ugin is a sweet new card from Dragonstorm, and I had the fortune of opening it in both of the pre-releases I did, because I'm a very skilled Magic player. And I thought he was pretty cool. In addition to that, getting Ugin to ult seems like a very quick way to win the game, but even without that, just being able to hit a bunch of stuff, and take control of the game just by casting mana rocks and things seemed like a really cool ability. So we're going to try to get Ugin into play and just kind of go from there. Hello. Thanks for the good morning. It's pretty close to evening here, but I hope you're having a good morning. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, first thing we got to do is obviously pick a commander. Ugin can go into any deck because it is colorless. I have a colorless deck of my own. It's a Kozilek deck, and there is a there's a pretty old video on the channel of me playing it. It's actually the first game that I played on the channel, was Kozilek. But I don't think we really want to do that. For one thing, colorless has a number of weaknesses, specifically distinct lack of instants and tutors for the most part. So we're going to try to kind of remedy that. Drawing cards also kind of a difficulty. So what are we trying to do with this deck? I'm going to try something new here. I'm ahead of time figuring this out. So when we're building around a card that is not our commander, we have to do a number of different things at the same time. Starting with find Ugin. Obviously, if we're building around Ugin, or Ugin maxing, as you might say, first thing we gotta do is find the thing. It's not gonna do us any good if we don't. Then we need to put it into play. Which is obviously something that is a little bit easier for some build around, I guess, secret commanders than others. Ugin costs 7 mana though, which is not a trivial task. So we need to do that, and then ideally, the reason why this works as a game plan is to ult Ugin. One of the really cool things that you can do with Ugin is if you have a bunch of colorless cards in your deck, which if you're building around having Ugin in play, or trying to maximize your value off of Ugin, you should probably have a few colorless things in your deck. And if you ult it, and the first thing you go and find is, let's say, a Glaring Fleshraker, game's gonna end real quick, because you just cast a bunch of free colorless spells, and you kill everyone. Including Corbyn. No.
You kill me? That's crazy.
Please don't die. Hello.
Oh.
We're gonna have a backup plan as well. We'll get into that later. But for now, this is kind of what we're trying to accomplish. To that point,
Asia? Ooh, you're so popular.
yeah, I guess so. I'm not lone wolfing, I promise. The two of us discussed some amount of time about how we want to get this going, and how to accomplish these things. I spent some time before we actually talked about it together, just kind of thinking about how we wanted this to go. And in order to get Ugin into play, part 2 of our game plan here,
Find Ugin, put Ugin into play. Ult Ugin.
Alt Ugin's very important.
Fair enough.
In order to do that, we need a way to produce mana, and what better way to produce mana than to use the color green? Specifically, if we have a commander that can produce mana on its own, it is a lot easier to get Ugin into play once you have managed to find it. And looking through all the various commanders that had blue and could produce mana, because blue is important, because I like blue. That's pretty much the only reason we're playing blue. We're looking at Idel. Cadell is a very interesting card. One of the weaker partners, I would say, but also not bad. Well, one of the weaker original two-colored.
I was going to say, everybody's
partners.
weak compared to
That's
Tim.
fair.
Though, but
Yeah. But it does some very interesting things. First of all, it ramps us towards 7. Second of all, it produces specifically colorless mana, which if we're going to be playing any cards such as Glaring Fleshbreaker that care about colorless mana, it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And third, if we come up with some ways to, let's say, draw lots of cards and untap Kydel a bunch of times, if there's some kind of archetype, any kind of archetype you can think of that you would want to draw a bunch of cards and make a bunch of mana, they work pretty well together.
That is true.
So
we were definitely sandbagging that joke.
A little bit. It's fine. We're gonna start with Cadell. Obviously, Cadell can have a partner. We don't necessarily have to have a partner, but we probably want a partner.
It would be a little funny to just raw dog Cadell.
It would definitely be a little funny.
Where's their partner? Nah, she a strong, independent woman.
Yeah, you don't need that.
Strong, independent commander. She don't need no partner.
It is definitely more powerful to have a partner. Obviously, partner is one of the more broken mechanics in Commander.
That is true.
Having 2 things in the command zone, pretty nice. Being able to add more colors, potentially pretty good too. Since we're kind of going for colorless spells and colorless build around over here with our Ugin, we don't need more colors, but white and black specifically are both much better at finding planeswalkers than blue and green are.
Correct. And white tends to have more synergy with planeswalkers than black outside of tutors. Like, yeah, they both can tutor, but you get stuff like Oath of Teferi and things. Oath of Gideon? No.
I mean, it is a card.
That is
white,
a card, but that's
black.
bad. What gives them?
A Johnny.
Oh no, a Johnny, but that's in green. Oh,
It
that's
is
in
white.
green. Oh, look at that, white
Yeah,
and green.
We got white and green.
So yeah, so you get going in white gives you more planeswalker support. If you wanted to diverge from Ugin just a tad, or if you want to have a backup plan, because what if someone Jester caps you for Ugin?
Yeah, or
What
if
do you
Ugin
do?
dies or something else happens to Ugin.
Yeah. So I would personally say go with white. So we could like figure out what we're doing.
So this is the list of every partner that we could theoretically partner with Kydel and Kydel itself. There are 100 cards in here. We're gonna filter that a little bit, I think. Say color is greater than white. Just so that everything in here has.
I mean, we could just do Timna. The issue with Timna is that she doesn't like. She would just be for the colors. I mean, granted, she is the most powerful partner commander in existence. However, you're like we're gonna be playing some board wipes, probably stuff like that. So that's pretty anti-Timna.
Yeah. The other important thing about Timna is that if you are playing Timna, you kind of need some very specific things to support Timna. The creatures, the ability to attack like multiple times, and you just kind of end up filling your deck with Tymna things because Tymna is the more powerful thing you'd be doing at that point. So just as like an enabler for colors, we could play Tymna, but also Tymna's boring. Everyone's got a
I mean,
Tymna deck.
yeah, Tim is boring. Funny enough, my Cycle Storm deck is 4 colors, Kaidel with Kaidel and Vile Smasher, and I just like don't cast Vile Smasher. So I know about that. I only play one commander life, and I'm just mooching off this other commander for the colors. And let me tell you, it doesn't feel good when you don't have anything to do except cast your other commander, and you know it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, so ideally we're gonna find something that does literally
Literally
anything.
anything.
Let's kind of go through these a little bit. These two are the red bonus ones. I don't know that red gives us anything. Okay, so before we look too much into this, what are we doing the rest of the time when we don't have Ugin in play or are not like actively trying to find Ugin? There are a number of different ways we could go about this. We could play like a bunch of draw spells just to maximize our Tymna value. I mean, not Tymna, Kaidel value,
Yeah.
and try to find Ugin. We could play a bunch of other planeswalkers. We could just do kind of a Super Friends sort of a thing. I don't know that any of the other planeswalkers are going to synergize necessarily with the kind of like we want to play a lot of colorless spells thing that we're trying to do with Ugin,
Yeah.
but that is a possibility. Especially since we're trying to alt Ugin, and anything that we put in here to give it more loyalty will be good with those as well.
Yeah.
Or since we're trying to play a bunch of colorless spells, we could just play a bunch of colorless spells, which is to say artifacts.
I was gonna say this is your deck. You want to delve into this concept, so I assumed we were either gonna be playing elves or artifacts.
So elves is a pretty neat idea. No. For those of you who weren't aware, I kind of try to build every green commander in an elf deck. Not like intentionally, it just kind of like works. But yes, we are going to be playing artifacts. We're going to be focusing on artifacts. We're going to be trying to have a lot of artifacts. Kaidel only producing colorless mana works really well with artifacts because then we can cast our spells. The fact that Ugin only really works with colorless spells, synergy there. There's a lot of really cool ways to draw with artifacts, etc., etc., etc. We'll get into a little bit more of the interesting overlap that we have later, but when we're looking at these, we're going to be keeping in mind that when we're not Ugining, we're trying to do artifact stuff. And to that end, Kiri's not too bad. Like, we're not really looking to attack, but just having a large first strike vigilance creature would be pretty okay. Again, red isn't like the greatest thing we could be doing, but it has like welder and stuff, I guess.
It's got welder and stuff. It's a 2-drop commander, so it turns on free spells faster. Plus, Mox Amber, so like see the Rogsai argument.
Yeah.
Rograk, what he adds to the command zone, Akiri does a very like 2 Rograks in a trench coat impersonation. Outside of that, I mean, it is a good blocker. If we do decide to play more planeswalkers, you just kind of have it there, daring people to run up. So that is interesting as well.
And if nothing else is going on, you're just like, oh, smash for 11.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's got vigilance, so like it's free.
So that's a maybe. Bruce Tarl is probably the worst of the two options. We are, again, not really trying to attack. Achroma, the fact that you can power it out with Tymna is pretty cool, but we're not doing any of this at all, really.
Correct.
1/1 counters is kind of neat because we are probably going to do something that hits counters so we can alt Ugin faster. Problem is, this puts it on other creatures, and we're not really trying to do that. Arden could be an equipment angle, but Ishai is another just kind of park the bus commander. Like Akiri, you just kind of put it into play, and if nothing else is going well, you just start hitting people.
Yep.
I think Akiri's better for deflecting SWAT reasons, but
Right.
kind of about it.
And you get a fourth color.
Yeah.
But
Kelith is weird. We're not attacking with our other commander, and I don't really care about
yep.
that. Livio, link stuff, costs a lot of mana. Rebecca is an interesting one.
Yep.
So Rebecca has the benefit of making it so that your artifacts are harder to kill.
Yep.
And if we are playing a bunch of artifacts, that is like kind of something we're interested in. It does run the risk of, if we are doing anything that targets our own artifacts, that doesn't really work out, though. And if I were to see into the future a little bit, there is a very suspicious Clock of Omens shaped hole in our deck list that doesn't really work with Rebecca.
That is true.
And the keys as well, and some other things that we're probably going to be looking at. Kind of a problem. Yoshimaru is the other I am just here to hang out commander. It costs even less than Akiri.
Yep.
It's also on the opposite side of the alphabet. That's cool. It also grows by us just like putting things into play. This time legendary rather than artifact, though, and I don't know how many of those we're gonna have. These three are all combat commanders. If we wanted black, probably Ravos, but Ravos is probably not doing a ton for us either. And then there's Radiant with flying and Prava with tokens. So none of those are really like great for our game plan.
Yeah, the only thing I can see with Prava is if we go a route where we are utilizing potentially Earthcraft, being able to make more tokens is good since you're, will be in green, blah, blah, blah. But outside of that, like you can design the deck to allow you to give more mana. You're in white, so you can play stuff like some of the Elspeths to make more tokens, stuff like that. I don't know if that's where we want to be, because then you start getting into a token thing, sub theme instead of an artifact sub theme. So
yeah,
probably not good. But I figured I'd throw that out there just in case somebody who's watching this stream, either now or in the future, we do like giving other ideas, even if we're not pursuing that specific idea during like this exact moment. Go find your own way.
If we were doing more of a Super Friends thing, I think that would be a really cool idea, because then you get a bunch of Elspeths and other things that make tokens.
Especially the new Elspeth. Ugh.
Yeah, that one.
Straight gross. Yeah, I mean, so Clock of Omens and the keys are like the only thing I can think of with Rebecca. But are we trying to do the usual like bracket 3 thing? Or are we trying to make this as powerful as possible?
We'll start looking at bracket 3, I think. Like, obviously the deck gets much better if you're playing Manifold Ancient Tomb,
right?
Mishra's Workshop, things like that.
Yeah.
But recent addition to the bracket tier list, Mishra's Workshop.
Yeah.
For some reason recent. But
I forgot about this.
Oh yeah, it just produces a black lotus's worth of mana every turn. That's probably fine.
Everybody's poor though, so there's only like one of these in the wild. I did proliferating with what is Omarthus?
Well, it's not a partner. Spelled that wrong.
Oh, that guy. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
That's pretty cool. It does run the risk, of course, of flipping your Ugin, which may or may not be a good thing, depending on what else you got going on. Like I said at the beginning, though, Colwys has a lot of weaknesses. Otherwise, I'd just be doing Kozilek again, because Kozilek is pretty sweet. So, I think we can start with Rebecca.
Yeah, we could also take a look to see if we do black, to see if there's anything we were potentially
Sure.
forgetting.
Well, Armix, for one, is an artifact, which
That
is relevant for
true.
reasons. Turns on Mox Opal and all that fun stuff. Actually does
Just
impact the board a
kills
little
some
bit.
stuff, yeah.
Francisco is funny with specifically some specific Walking Ballista, Agatha's Soul Cauldron stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's fair. Giving Kydel Death Touch and Menace probably doesn't do very much. Iker Shadiki, again, probably not going to be attacking too much.
Yep.
Tevizat is just a strong thing that gives us blockers and gives us more reasons to proliferate.
He also draws cards, which synergizes
Drawing
with
cards
Kydel.
is pretty neat.
That is, he is not. I actually forgot about him, so it's good that we did this.
Yeah. Silas Run is also an artifact, and it draws cards, sort of. It's probably better than Armix most of the time.
Yeah, he's decent with like stuff like Lotus Petal. He's a decent blocker in case we play Planeswalkers early, stuff of that nature. Is technically cheaper than Kydel. I think at that point I would prefer Tavish.
Yeah. Tevis drawing cards also really works well with Kydel because Kydel cares about you drawing cards.
Yep.
And Tevis does that for free every turn. I'm kind of sold on Tevis.
Yeah, let's try Let's try Kydel Tavish.
Okay.
See, this is why you should look at stuff.
Also, you really don't have to do much to sell me on Tevis. I like me a Tevis that.
That's fair.
The Doom of Fools, you
He
see.
is the Doom of Fools. All right. So
Okay. So, Ugin maxing. We are, per our game plan, trying to find Ugin, put Ugin into play, and then ult Ugin. Part of putting Ugin into play is generating enough mana, which we do with Kydel, ideally, and drawing cards with Kydel. There are a few useful and or interesting permanents that we might want to consider to start, like Sylvan Library.
being in black also allows you to play biotransference, which I know I suggest this card a lot. However,
It is actually good here, yeah.
yes.
Biotransference, we'll get to why this is important in a minute. That minute is now. So there's a card called Clock of Omens.
That minute is now.
We're getting sidetracked a little bit, but also kind of not.
Yeah, so I was gonna talk about this later, but we will talk about doubling season and its ilk once we get done gushing over Clock of Omens.
Yeah, so since we have 3 parts to our game plan, find Ugin, put Ugin into play, and ult Ugin, ulting Ugin is going to be one of the important things, and doubling season's a possibility. But we'll
Yeah.
get there momentarily. It's also very good with Tevish. It's
Yeah.
actually very funny with Tevish. Extremely funny. with
Extremely
Tevish,
funny.
So Clock of Omens, you can tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to untap target artifact. What kind of artifacts are you going to be untapping? Well, apart from the normal mana rocks, which Mana Vault might just make the cut as being a very powerful card that we can choose to be one of our game changers, and is really very nice with Clock of Omens, but so is a permanent that lets you draw cards and therefore do things with Kydel. The One Ring.
Yep.
I don't know if you've heard of this one, but you can tap it to draw cards, and it draws a lot of cards. And if you can untap it, it draws even more cards. Obviously, Clock of Omens can untap the One Ring. It doesn't untap Kydel, unless
You
Kydel's
see.
an artifact.
Yep.
So that's what biotransference is for. We are going to have to worry about dying if we're trying to artifact storm out, because the creating a 2/2 and losing a life is not optional.
We are literally in green.
Yeah,
So just
yeah, we'll get there.
yeah.
But
But yeah,
It
it
is-
is definitely worth pointing out so people don't just start throwing biotransference in all their decks. The other thing,
Despite you telling them to. Or,
correct.
okay.
Specifically you. Most of your decks, I'm just like, biotransference is cracked.
Someday I'll find a deck that actually wants it. I guess it's
This is
one.
that deck.
Yeah.
The other thing about biotransference, which is nice, especially with Clock of Omens, is that it gives you one extra artifact because the Necron warrior that it creates when you're casting and going through your stuff, we're being hacked right now because
No.
biotransference is too strong.
I can't see that. It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay, never mind. But anywho, uh, you get one untapped artifact for every artifact you cast, which makes it very easy to start Clock of Omenings out. And then, I mean, honestly, if you have stuff like Aetherflux Reservoir, you are fine anyway because you will break a point at one sooner rather than later where the life loss doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll see if we actually need Aetherflux Reservoir, but for now we'll put it in.
Yeah.
I guess it is a backup Glaring Fleshraker if we can't find it, or
Yep.
if it gets killed or exiled or whatever.
Mhm.
Glaring Fleshraker, I mentioned this in the intro before you were here, but one of the things you do when you alt Ugin, and the reason why alting Ugin wins you the game, is if you get Glaring Fleshraker into play and you just like cast every colorless spell in your deck, you win the game.
Yep.
Aetherflux Reservoir does kind of the same thing. In fact, it does exactly the same thing. Glaring Fleshraker is better as like a card in the deck, generally speaking, because you reduce additional mana, blockers if you need them, fuel for the Tempestat. But Aetherflux Reservoir gains its life, which is important for things, and it's always good to have a little bit of redundancy.
Don't you cast everything at once with Ugin though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing won't resolve in order. Oh, okay, never mind. You don't cast them at once.
Even if you did, like, you still have to do things in order. I mean, oh yeah. You put them all in the stack. And
Yeah. Anyway,
but
I understand now.
Yeah, if you did put them all in the stack at once, you could still have like anything that bounces anything, and then you've cast that many spells that turn.
Yeah, with Aetherflux, but not Glaring. Like I was talking about specifically Glaring.
Yeah. Okay. No, they work.
But yeah, so okay, that's cool. That's cool. Second biotransference, encroaching mycosynth.
Encroaching mycosynth is a little bit harder to justify because it's kind of a lot worse, but we'll put it in for now. The other really cool thing that we can do that works with all that is the thing that taps to make things artifacts.
Oh, liquid metal torque.
Yeah, liquid metal torque. Liquid
metal.
Freudian slip, I guess. Liquid metal torque is just a mana rock until it's not, and you turn your commander into an artifact, and then, yeah, good things happen. We could play liquid metal coating as well. Liquid metal coating specifically hits lands. We don't really care about untapping any specific lands in this deck. Tolarian Academy, sadly, did not make the for a very good reason, did not make the unban list. So we don't really care about turning our lands into artifacts.
Yeah.
For the most part. So let's turn that into it though, and it's a mana rock, and it's a colorless spell.
That actually might just be better than encroaching mycosynth for our purposes.
That was kind of the thought. So. Like mycosynth is not only not colorless, but also doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It does. So what it does specifically, if we wanted to play it, is it turns cards like Fabricate into Tutor's for Ugin.
Yeah.
But we're in black, so we probably don't need that.
Biotransference just hits creatures, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, we're in black, but the interesting thing about encroaching mycosynth is that it to your point, it helps you get around the game changer issue for bracket 3. So like demonic tutor, imperial sylph, empiric tutor, those are all game changers. So
Yeah.
if you're then able to run more tutors for artifacts, encroaching microsynth allows you to um up the consistency of your deck without bracketing, which is still in the spirit of the game because you're going out of your way to increase the consistency of your deck by utilizing a weird interaction, which is fine. No, anybody who gets mad at that, I don't know, go find a better life. Yeah, Manamo is good.
Yeah, I lied about not wanting to untap our lands, but our land just untaps other things. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, turning Minamo into an artifact so that we can untap it with Liquid Metal Torque. I mean, so we can untap it with Clock of Omens is like kind of putting a bunch of steps.
Tamio, Inquisitive Student was suggested. I do think that's a really good idea.
Tamio, yeah, I agree. Tamio's pretty cool for a couple of different reasons. For one, it draws cards, which is neat. Well, it slowly draws cards, but more importantly, it puts artifacts onto the battlefield.
Yep.
And then if you do manage to ultimate it, you probably win the game. And since we are trying to ult at least one planeswalker, yeah, it seems to fit our plan pretty well. And it's just an early play.
Yep. That is pretty good. Okay, so let's talk a little about doubling season and why I don't like that card, and why we're still probably gonna play it. So doubling season and its ilk are part of um a list of cards that we will affectionately refer to as a powdered keg. It doesn't do anything on its own, just like a powdered keg doesn't do anything on its own. But if you do have something to ignite it, it makes a wonderful explosion. Um, the issue is, I don't know if you've played Commander, but sometimes people interact with you. Sometimes you just top deck poorly, and things of that nature. And so, doubling season by itself is a little sketchy. Now, the reason why this card is actually pretty good in this deck, outside of being able to slam Ugin, is that you do have a card that directly synergizes with it in the command zone. Um, a fair amount of times I see doubling season in decks where the commander itself doesn't synergize with doubling season, which makes that effect even weaker. But we're going to be playing a couple other cards. Unfortunately, we're not in white, so we can't play Smothering Tithe. But uh, we're probably going to be making more artifact tokens, treasures, things of that nature. So doubling season works with that, as well as being able to just ult planeswalkers as soon as it comes into play. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
one of our commanders also makes tokens, and it's the one that's
yep,
already good at doubling season. I will say, so the other problem with doubling season is that it doesn't do anything when you play it.
that is
Like
also true.
it
Yep.
requires you to play it before it does anything, which sounds obvious, but like you need to play it and then you light the fuse on your
Correct.
powdered keg. So if you have Tevish in play already and you play doubling season, yeah, you can +2 it to get 4 trolls and 4 loyalty, but it's not nearly as good as if you take a turn off casting doubling season and then throw Tevish out into play with 8 loyalty already.
Does it get? I don't
Obviously,
think it gives you more loyalty. Appear does, but doubling season gives you okay.
yeah,
Never.
doubling season does. With certain things as well, like Ugin, you can just ult it right
Well,
away.
no, because yeah. So, but that's an effect. So that's a ETB of like planeswalkers coming into play adds those loyalty counters. Um, Putting the loyalty counter on is a cost though, so I didn't think that synergized with specifically the way doubling season is worded because it's not an effect putting it on; it's a cost you're paying.
Oh, for that, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for the +4 thing.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe it
yeah.
doesn't actually. I thought you were talking about putting it into play.
Oh no, putting it into play 100% works, but I think plussing it doesn't do anything. Pure Imaginative Rascal does though, because of how it's worded.
Yeah, because it says if you would put one or more counters on, you do
Yeah.
twice that many. I don't think we really want to play Pier though.
Yeah, I don't. I was just saying
Yeah,
that's what it would do.
that's true.
Um,
Pier and Toothy are both kind of interesting.
you know,
I
the
don't think we're in
flaw.
there for this just because artifacts and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, but that's my little rant about like doubling season. The white one or the token doublers, like all of those.
Yeah, Anointed Procession.
Anointed
all those
Procession,
fun
Parallel
things.
Live, stuff like that. Like the fact that you have to sandbag some of the cards in your hand in order to make those cards good, that is why I don't like them. Because it slows down the malleable synergy of your deck. However, in this instance, specifically doubling season, like we will play enough synergistic pieces to make it so that even if we play doubling season later, it's still gonna do some things, which is nice.
Hopefully.
So hopefully, we will do that. Now, it it does double our one ring counters. We will die. Anywho, in that same vein, on the old Ugin plan, there's a couple other cards. So another suggestion was Radstorm. I do think that is an interesting suggestion because we can proliferate some other stuff too, not just Ugin. I'm also partial to a card called Clock Spinning. Uh, because it is going to be fairly easy to produce a bunch of mana in this deck so that you will be able to keep buying back the clock spinning. It will also work with some of the other cards in our deck later. Now, so it's that. The blue creature that proliferates for non.
Yeah, that one's probably pretty good.
Yeah, Flux Channeler.
Flux Channeler.
So I would play that as well.
It's also very good with Tevish. The fact that
Yes.
we have Tevish in the command zone makes a lot of these cards a lot better than if we were not doing
Yeah,
that.
if Rebecca was in the command zone.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat. All three of these are pretty good. Do we want to run Fish that doubles counters when it enters?
Oh, Deep Glow Skate or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't think we'll need it.
Okay.
We can have it in the back of our head, but between clock spinning, like honestly, I'd play an Actual Tide maybe before the Fish.
Sure.
Because the Fish kind of works similar to doubling. You can play it after you play your Planeswalkers, but you still need one without or one instead of the
Yeah.
other type of deal.
It doesn't do anything unless you have some very specific things in play.
Right. And clock spinning is funny because you can randomly clown other people that are doing stuff with counters as well. If you're just like going through your turns trying to find an Ugin, like, oh, my Everflowing Chalice has one counter on it. Nope.
Not anymore. Yeah, clock spinning is very high on the clown scale.
Oh my god. But Gemstone Caverns has a luck counter. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. Nice colorless land you have there.
So, and like Matt was saying, you can upping counters on the One Ring isn't that good. But depending on what you're
Draws you
doing,
cards slowly.
yeah, it draws these cards slowly. If somebody else plays a One Ring, you could potentially just kill them in their upkeep, which is kind of funny.
Or you can just keep knocking them back down to 0 counters.
Yeah,
whatever.
or you could do that. Yeah,
If you have literally nothing better to do.
you can make it so that if they tap it, they'll die because they'll deck themselves. Or if they're in their upkeep, they're still gonna die anyway. So, yeah, like Matt said, clock spinning is very, very high on the clown scale. So, do we want Displacer Kitten since we're playing
Probably.
Storm? Yeah, probably.
So to address the simulacrum synthesizer and academy manufacturer suggestions, synthesizer doesn't really do anything other than put large dorks into play, which is a game plan in itself.
Mhm.
But A, that thing is not colorless, so it doesn't work with Ugin. And B, you need some artifacts with some very specific requirements. They need to have mana value 3 or greater, specifically. And while we do have some of those, I don't think that the deck is going to have a ton of those at the end of it. As for Academy Manufacturer, yeah, we're going to have a little bit of clue stuff. Tameo's in here. We might throw Oko in with foods because Oko's Oko. But for the most part, we're probably not going to be focusing too much on the things that Academy Manufacturer actually cares about. We're not going to be going deep on treasures. We're not going to be, trying to accumulate a bunch of clues unless Tameo just happens to be sitting in play for a long time. So it's probably not super useful here.
Yeah, I agree. It also, one thing about building decks, as far as synergy is concerned, as well as just the flow of your deck, if you get, and I'm not saying this is happening in this case, but it kind of brought this to my mind. You can easily get lost in the sauce by just throwing a bunch of cards in your deck that are either insanely strong on their own, or they are really strong in certain archetypes and other formats, and you try to import that in Commander. On paper, that doesn't sound bad because it's like, oh, why wouldn't I play the strongest cards? Like, that's cool. The issue though is people do that, and then those same people complain about how boring the games that get. You can have a very linear game plan, but if you focus on instead of just playing innately powerful cards because you're in those colors, you can use those slots to actually play pivot pieces that allow you to be flexible with your deck. You still have a linear game plan, but how you get there is very, very flexible at that point. So, for example, even as we are building this deck right now, and our very, very linear game plan is to go get Ugin and Ultim. A lot of these pieces, as you can see, synergize with not only one of our commanders, Tevish, but any other planeswalker that we will start to put in the deck. Tameo, for instance, if we flip Tameo Inquisitive Student, the Tameo it becomes, it is going to be very easy to ult her and just draw half our deck, right? So that is what happens when you don't just play objectively powerful cards all the time just because you can.
Yeah, the deck that I recorded with today, which you all see next week, I didn't put Source of Plowshares in the deck. It's a very good card, and I was in white, but I didn't put swords in because Solitude made more sense. What I was trying to do with the deck.
Yep.
And I had a bunch of other creature removal, so even though it's generically powerful, you don't necessarily want to put it in. Another case in point, which we may throw in a bunch of signets and stuff eventually.
Yeah.
By which I mean you probably will. Everflowing Chalice is not very good in a 3-color deck. Unless you see most of your stuff is colorless, or hopefully. Right now we're kind of failing on that, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of ways to put counters on things. Then Everflowing Chalice becomes kind of ridiculous. If you can Flux Channeler, make it bigger, and basically become a backup or potentially even better Kaidel.
Yep.
Then suddenly Everflowing Chalice starts to look kind of neat. You know, you have all these other options. In green especially, we've got Revisits, and we've got Wild Growth, and all the Mana Dorks, and like Birds of Paradise is objectively a much more powerful card than Everflowing Chalice.
Right.
But we're not going to be playing Birds, and we are going to be playing Chalice.
100%. Nope, that is fair.
By the way, I added more packages. I created some packages. We got Basic Rocks, which is all of the Talismans, Soul Ring, and all of the Signets.
Okay.
And we can remove some of those if we want to, but here now.
Okay. All right. So ulting Ugin, we've got 3 cards that can ult Ugin and a doubling season. So that's cool.
Also.
Do we not? Oh, we didn't tag it. Got it. So we have 4 cards that can ult Ugin. So for now, that's fine. I don't think we need to go into the what do you call it,
The weeds.
the weeds. Well, not necessarily the an actual tide's not the weeds, but I don't think we need to go there right now.
Yeah, we're not trying to go that deep right now into the weeds. As it
So
were. So inexorable tide is definitely a thing that we could be playing if we were interested in focusing on proliferating stuff, which like we are gonna have some amount of sub theme on that. But it's 5 mana and it doesn't do anything the
yeah,
turn you play it unless you have a bunch of extra mana and cards in hand. And
so
stuff.
it's 5 mana, and biotransference allows us to tutor for creatures because it has the same templating as Witcher Trigger.
Yes.
So
What are we talking about?
you can fabricate for flux channeling with if you have biotransfer out.
Sure.
So it turns your artifact tutors into flux channelers, which means you don't necessarily have to play an Extral Tide because you have more ways to get the flux channeler, which does the same thing. So
Yes. Okay, that's where we were going.
yeah, that's what we're
I
going.
get it now.
Industrial statue, like literally can't be in chat for more than 2 seconds without dropping some weirdness.
Don't let him know he's in black. He'll suggest illicit masquerade.
Yeah. No, I don't think we are playing Ancestral Statue at this moment.
Yeah, ideally, a lot of the colorless things we're going to be playing are going to be non-creatures, so we can take advantage of Displacer Kitten and Flux Channeler. Who knows? We'll see. It might get there.
That is true. I mean, if we were playing an actual tide, it's better, but like you could just play something else.
The other thing too with that though, if we don't have a bunch of ways to reduce the cost of artifacts, it's going to be difficult to play that more than once a turn. I don't know that we want to go super deep on. Well, we might play like Ethereum Sculptor because it's cheap, but I don't know that we want to play like Cloud Key and things. We're not like really trying to do that.
I mean, I'd probably play a Helm of Awakening to start, but I wouldn't go too far into that because I think it's actually it's an easier plan to get Kydel over the mana hump and then just play something like Staff of Domination than it is to play a bunch of reducers.
Yeah.
So
do we want to play Staff of Domination?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Dominatrix.
Wild. I mean, and to that token, I don't think we play Staff of Completion, but that's a lot of life. If you produce enough mana, you can play like it goes into the old Ugin. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
And it untaps itself. But it costs life to do all that outside of untapping itself. So we have to have enough life in order to do that, which is it 5 life to proliferate?
I think it's like 3.
Probably. Oh yeah, it's like 5 life to draw a card, right? Or something.
4 life is draw a card, 5 mana is to untap it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Other than that, it's kind of a bad mana rock. And
Lugan comes down at 7 and ults at 11, so we just need to proliferate it 4 times.
Well, it depends on when we are trying to ult it. If we are doing it the turn it comes down, then yes.
Yeah. So we would need 15 mana and 15 life. No. 12 life. 12 life and 15 mana. Sure, that's doable. All right, let's play it.
Okay. It's also just like a reasonable grind piece. If you have Kydel out and you just want it to tap for more mana, it does that while drawing a card.
Right.
We're playing Tevesh and Kydel because Kydel helps us put Ugin into play, and Tevesh works really well with Kydel, and synergizes with all the things that we're trying to use to alt Ugin.
Life tap. Dude, so hear me out. So we play Yamamaya and Life Tap, right? So we just start going on. We're in blacks, like Bolas and Citadel, Necropotence. Like we're just like, yo, all the life. Oh my gosh.
So for those of you who don't know what Life Tap is, it's an enchantment that says you gain 1 life anytime an opponent taps a forest. Which, yeah,
We're not playing this game.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing
There's
it.
also,
But it is very funny.
there is a card from Mirage that I can't remember the name of, but I own at least 1 copy. Roots of Life that we can play with Urborg and do the same thing.
But that counts our own stuff, which is a little bit better.
It's a little bit better. It's also a 3-mana enchantment that doesn't synergize with what we're trying to do.
100%. Draw Scorpion. So Draw Scorpion is interesting. If we end up playing a bunch of artifacts / artifact tokens that sack themselves, Draw Scorpion does synergize with like biotransference. However,
Scorpion and biotransference are great if you have specifically Glaring Flushraker in play.
that is true.
The rest of the time, we're not really looking to sack our own stuff.
Correct.
And
So the deck doesn't synergize for Draw Scorpion at this moment in time, but that is definitely an option that you can go towards. You would be playing a lot more ways to sack your board, though.
yeah, I guess we do have one way. It's Staff of Completion.
Yes, we could play Staff of Completion to specifically blow up our stuff.
We're probably not going to be doing that. The 6th Doctor has the same issue that Doubling Season does, in that it's really good if you get it out first, and it's also kind of a lot of mana. Obviously, we're planning to produce a lot of mana.
Yeah. And with the Planeswalkers we're playing specifically, and by specifically I just mean Ugin. Ugin doesn't, like, you don't need multiple Ugins. You just need one.
Yeah.
You don't need multiple Teverzats. You just need one. So, it, like, being able to copy more of your mana rocks is fine, but it is pretty slow for that unless you're building around specifically the 6th Doctor, which I believe Brent actually has a deck that builds around the 6th Doctor, which is pretty crazy. But
yeah, he's mentioned it on one of the previous deck building streams as well. Yeah. But yeah, the having double Tevish is actually pretty neat, but I don't think that we're into that because you can use one to create tokens and the other one to
there's weirding. Oh boy, this dude is just, you must be fun at parties, and I don't mean that ironically. So anyway,
Surge Weirding is sweet. I like Surge Weirding.
Surge, like, that's a boss card. I played it specifically one time. So anyway,
eventually I'm gonna build a Lantern deck with that and like Field of Dreams and stuff.
And Puka's Mischief.
Yeah.
So anyway,
not today.
You saw his 6th Doctor deck. I think you saw a version that he played on the channel, but he has been tinkering with that thing since he played it. So it's pretty consistent these days. But maybe yours is better.
He's also doing the thing where he just like swaps out a bunch of cards to try different stuff. So depending on what iterations he's on. Also, it's not really meant to be a powerful deck, I don't think. I mean, win games, sure, but not like, you know.
Yeah, like as consistently as fast as possible. Blah blah blah. Yeah, it's fine. Most of his decks get blown out by Vandal Blast anyway. So.
Molrod. Yeah.
No, you're right. Collector. Oof.
Speaking of those things, right now the only way that we have to deal with those is Oko. You might want to do a little.
Yeah, so we could probably play some Merge. I think that's pretty free.
Explain.
So because if you need an out to like the null rod or whatever, and
Submerge only hits creatures.
does it? Oh,
Yep.
never mind. Ignore me. Dang. Okay, never mind.
It
Card's
is funny.
garbage.
We can play it with Yavimaya to combo with our life craft, but our life tap. But
All
maybe
right.
not. I had it in the control version of Yistala because it is a free spell that costs more than 3.
Yeah.
But
Let's let's finish outlining our game plan and then we can look at interaction. So ult Ugin, we did that. Put
sort of.
sort of. Put Ugin into play. I don't know why we're working backwards, but here we are.
Yeah.
So Kaidel does the thing.
All of these do
All
that.
those do the thing. We could potentially play energy refractor. I wouldn't put it in right now, but depending on how many colored things we have to cast afterwards, it does filter all our colorless mana
Yeah.
into
I forgot when we put in Staff of Domination.
Metalworker.
Metalworker is
Not a
backup
game
Kaidel.
changer.
Nope.
That's wild. We'll get
It's 3
there.
mana and a summoning sickness. Don't look at the price.
Oh.
It's very strong with Staff of Domination, and the rest of the time, it's basically another Kaidel. Hopefully.
So Mycos Lattice does make spells colorless.
But if we are ulting Ugin, we will have enough colorless spells. We don't really need to make more of them colorless.
Correct.
And if we are just like value Ugining, drawing Mycos Lattice at basically any point is not what we really want to be doing. It doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, so basically for how we're building the deck, biotransference is a safer Mycosynth Lattice. Because Mycosynth Lattice also just like randomly does random stuff like, oh well, you played a Mycosynth Lattice, I'm gonna play this Karn and nobody can do anything except for me. Or I'm gonna play this Null Rod, or I'm gonna play this Bane of Progress, or I'm gonna Vandal Blast. Like there's just a lot of stuff that can happen with an M Lattice when you're just kind of raw dogging it. So
yeah, we're probably gonna have some amount of like cheap counter spells or whatever to prevent some of the more egregious things from happening, but Mycosynth Lattice is kind of a ticking time bomb that we don't really need because it's but
yeah. Now, if you were going to also play more combos with Mycosynth Lattice, that's fine. But yeah, that's not what we're on today. There is a version of this deck in some alternate dimension that plays Mycosynth Lattice. It's not this one. But anyway, going back to putting Ugin into play. So making mana. So we added
we got Kaidel, we got Metalworker, we've got Mana Bolt, and all these things.
Do we want to play the keys?
We got the keys.
Do you? Do you put the keys in there? Okay, cool. There was something I was just gonna. Oh boy, I lost it to the ether now.
Was it talk about Find Ugin?
No.
Okay.
It was still put Ugin into play, and there was
Dark Rich. Well, while you're thinking about that, backup Ugin, the backup thing, Artifact Storm, we are probably going to want Sensei's Divining Top and some number of future side effects. I suppose Mycosynth Lattice and, not Lattice, Mystic Forge and Crystal Skull are kind of like the normal ones. Hopefully we have enough things in here that those are good. If you saw the video from today where I was playing Ishtala and I had Crystal Skull in play for multiple turns and just didn't do anything, that's kind of the problem with that card. I also PO'd for 5 and drew 5 lands, which was neat. But the rest of the time, if we have one of these and we have top Where that ended up. Card selection over here. Okay. Up. And we have Galarian Fleshbreakers specifically. We will win the game on the spot if our spells resolve and all that.
Or Helm of Awakening.
Yeah, if we play that. I suppose Ethereum Sculptor is probably worth playing.
Yeah, I suppose that's a better Helm of Awakening.
For the time being, yeah. Helm's pretty good. Helm does some stuff. Helm helps your opponents though, and it's kind of risky. We might play it though. I'll put it in for now. And yeah, those things. So because you cast the top from the top of your deck, you get a mana or it costs 0, and then you put it back on top of your deck to draw a different card. Draw all the cards. And if you got Glaring Fleshbreaker in play, that also results in damage. If you don't, you will eventually find ways to produce mana, perhaps a mana vault, perhaps, and then kind of go from there. Whatever you want, get Aetherflux into play, win the game.
Well, what I was gonna suggest is lost on me. However, we should be playing some combination of Teferi and or 6 mana Teferi and or Tezzeret, the Seeker.
Yes, Tezzeret for sure. So Tezzeret the Seeker is a very cool card. Type the because not only does it synergize with the fact that we're playing a bunch of artifacts and it untaps the One Ring and it untaps Kaidel if she's an artifact and all that fun stuff, but the fact that it enters with 4 loyalty and you can minus exit to find any artifact that costs 4 or less is conveniently the number for, let's say, the One Ring or Clock of Omens or whatever you need.
Yeah. Camcar, welcome. So we're including black because we wanted Kaidel in the command zone, first and foremost. So instead of putting Tamio in the command zone, the deck, because it's Matt's trying to build it, so it's gonna naturally either be an artifact deck or a elf deck. So right now it's an artifact deck, and he fell in love with Ugin, Eye of the Storms. And so what we're doing right now is building basically an artifact storm deck. Its main engine is going to be to play Ugin and ult him, so you can cast all your stuff. It's going to have backup plans, including Glaring Fleshbreaker and Aetherflux Reservoir, but Ugin is kind of the main thing. So to that end, Kaidel helps us cast the Ugin and black. So we were deciding between either white or black. We decided not to play both because the white and black partner commanders were kind of butt for the strategy that we were doing. We were right about to play Rebek to give our artifacts Shroud. But then I was like, let's look at black. And we saw Teverzat, Doom of Fools, and we're like, nah, we want to do that. So now you're up to speed.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. That doesn't get a little bit. Basically, you can see our game plan in this box down here that I'm not getting to work. And
Infinite mana via Staff of Domination.
Yeah, I didn't put Staff of Domination whole thing in there.
Or like clock spinning, like you can get like random infinite.
Yeah, but Staff of Domination specifically also draws your deck, which is
Staff of Mommy. How many Ugins you playing? One.
Just one. Just the one.
Just the one that matters.
Yeah, there's a case to be made for 6 mana Ugin.
Yeah.
Just the fact that it reduces the cost of all of your artifacts by 2. It is
what's called spells.
Yeah.
So not just artifacts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's true. it reduces the other Ugin as well, and that's glaring flesh raker.
Yep.
But for now we just want the one Ugin. Yeah, so kind of backtracking a little bit. I want to build around this Ugin, so we're doing that. In order to get Ugin to do things, we want to ult Ugin, but first we got to put Ugin into play, and Cadell does that pretty well. And then we also need to find Ugin, which is what the black is for, if we want black or white, because those things can actually find planeswalkers, which we haven't done any of yet. We currently do not have a single black card in the deck except for Tevizat.
And biotransference.
Which notably does not find Ugin.
So yes, we can go on the find Ugin plan. So we've got a couple options. We have a lot of mana. So and to great effect, there are a couple of cards that
what's the name of it?
Diabolic Revelation.
Oh, it's
there's no boom. Like that card is amazing when you produce a boatload of mana for no reason. Other than that, it is a demonic tutor for 6 mana.
Yep.
But
is that what you were working towards?
That is what I was working towards. Oh yeah,
I'll put it in for now. It seems
the more
very
reasonable one is increasing ambitions. Is the more reasonable one. That is 5 mana demonic.
I already have it tagged. That means I put it on deck before.
See? Look at you. But yeah, increasing ambitions is a decent card too. I had a deck in the past that was a turbo Gaia's Cradle deck, and I played both of those cards to very surprisingly good performance. So when you're making a boatload of mana, those cards are oh, that's what I was gonna say. Chromatic Orrery is actually pretty good in this deck. So Chromatic Orrery is good for a couple reasons. The main reason is because it allows you to, so it's a safer Microsynth Lattice again. Allows you to cast any of our spells without with just colorless mana or mana of any other color. So it color fixes, but in a pinch we can use it to draw a non-zero amount of cards depending on how many colors of permanents we have, which at most is only going to be 3. But that's still 3 cards you weren't drawing before. So it also just taps for 5 mana. So that's pretty good when you're looking at untapping it with cards like
Clock of Omens.
That.
Or Voltaic Key or whatever. Yeah, it's another way to use your Cadell mana. If you have a bunch of mana, you can simply draw 2 or 3 cards. And the rest of the time it produces a bunch of mana.
Yeah, that's a good call, Preston. Or Orrery does good stuff with Displacer Kitten. So, but anyway, all right. So going back to finding Ugin. So we got Diabolic Revelation, got Increasing Ambition. We can play exactly one more Game Changer, so we should probably play Diabolic Tutor. Yes.
Diabolic Tutor, yes.
Demonic Tutor. I think that's better than Vampiric Tutor, specifically because it puts the card in your hand. So it's a better top deck than Vampiric Tutor.
Yeah, it's also like, while we're not like optimizing specifically to play the get the most value out of our Game Changers, there aren't really all that many other things we probably play. Like
Ancient Tomb wouldn't be bad, but yeah,
Ancient Tomb would be pretty good. That one was on the top of my list, but like Gaia's Cradle, not really making the cut.
No,
at the moment.
Because again, we would have to retool.
Speaking of,
if we were on, we talked a little bit earlier. I mentioned briefly about a version of the deck that could play tokens. And
you know that Mox Opal isn't a game.
That's crazy. You could play stuff like the Elspeths to make more tokens. So in those type of decks, playing Gaia's Cradle would be very helpful for the let's ult some Ugins plans. But that is not the deck we're playing. So
I do like Disruptor Flute. I've been kind of high on Pithing Needle effects recently, just because there are a lot of commanders and a lot of strategies that it just kind of shuts down. Um, I'm kind of more on Pithing Needle when we are on Urza Saga, which guess what? We can put Urza Saga in the stack.
that is also not a game changer. Yeah, Earth Saga is good anyway because it proliferates. You can
It's good
proliferate
with
it. Yeah,
Proliferate.
it's good with proliferate.
It's
I should
even
say.
better with Clock Spinning because you can just keep it forever if you want to spend 4 extra mana.
That is true. Um,
That's not true. It's
it,
not good.
I mean, it's not the worst because you can just get an artifact every turn if you're on that slow roll
Yeah,
plan.
I guess so.
So the way this works, if anybody was not paying attention to the video, any of the videos that I played recently, because I was playing some sagas, sagas do not sack themselves right away. The way that it works is that once the final chapter ability of a saga is on the stack and has resolved, once it leaves the stack, then you sacrifice the saga by as a state-based action. So sagas with a number of chapter counters equal to or greater than its final chapter, and the chapter ability is not on the stack, then you put it in your graveyard or you sacrifice it. So what you can do is have the chapter ability on the stack and do something with the saga in order to remove the counter. So in this case, it's clock spinning. So if you, with the last ability on the stack, you clock spinning to remove a counter from it, what will happen is that third chapter ability will finish resolving, but then the game sees that the saga only has 2 chapter counters on it, so it will stay on the field.
Yeah.
So it's pretty neat. Like Matt said, it's 4 mana, but one of those manas can be Urza Saga itself.
Yep.
So
So you can, for 4 mana every turn, you can tutor up a 1 or 0 drop, which we have a couple so far.
we have a fair amount, including the keys.
Soul
So
Ring, Mana Vault, Lotus Petal,
no,
Overflowing Chalice if you're weird, I guess.
yeah, I don't.
Chalice for 0 is not really where you want to be.
Yeah, we don't have any ways to put charge counters on permanent, so that's a little sketchy.
Or ways to bounce it at the moment. We might have something to that effect eventually. Cyclonic Rift is another game changer that would have been okay. It doesn't bounce our Chalice, it's just have nothing fit from that.
That is true.
But I don't think it's better than any of the other 3 that we have.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a sweeper, you can play like Toxic Deluge or Damnation or something like that. So I don't think it would be super. I don't think it's super necessary. So
Yeah. While you were explaining that, I added Lotus Petal because Lotus Petal is pretty cool.
yeah,
I also added Pithing Needle per the discussion that we just had. Pithing Needle is pretty neat, not only because you can fetch it off of Saga and it like does stuff,
right.
but it's just a 1-man artifact. So when you have, let's say, a Glaring Fleshraker or whatever, you can cast it for basically free. And with Ugin, it's a Vindicate.
So Hullbreaker Horror is interesting. Because one and maybe I'm probably rebuilding this deck. One of the reasons Matt wanted me here is because I may or may not have experience with Planeswalker Storm decks specifically. And there is a card called Cloudstone Curio that says whenever a non-artifact permanent enters the battlefield, you can bounce a permanent that shares a type with it. That includes planeswalkers, so you can set up loops where you can like chain planeswalkers and stuff like that. But it specifically says non-artifact, which kind of goes against what this deck is trying to do. So I was going to keep that to myself.
Hullbreaker is a little bit different because we are kind of doing that sort of a thing.
And it deals with artifacts, and it also synergizes with Ugin, where if you don't have a way to potentially produce, like, if you don't have a way to ult Ugin that turn, you can Hullbreaker chain like Mana Vault and Soul Ring or something like that, and just exile everybody's permanents, which is kind of
Yeah.
wild.
Non-land permanents.
Non-land permanents, yeah.
Well, unless. So, no. There's a card called Shifting Skies, which we're not going to put in the deck. Shifting Sky? Yeah. Oh, it's non-land. Never mind. It lets Ugin blow up things that are not colored. Normally, like artifacts. I thought it said land too. That would have been sweet. Doesn't matter. I guess that would be a little powerful.
It's just color, but you can play like because Ugin
You
just
can
has
play Painter's
colors.
Servant,
Yeah,
but then you don't have any colorless spells, so it
correct.
doesn't do anything anymore.
There was a way, man. What was it? I forgot. Somebody on Arena. I was playing Arena the other day, and he started using Ugin to blow up my lands, and I don't remember how. So we're here now.
Huh.
So sorry.
If you figure it out, let me know.
Yeah, sure.
That might be useful.
But yeah, no, Ugin was on my lands, and I'm like, okay, dog, you got it.
Yeah.
And it's on Arena, so like it's a recent card too. I don't know. Anyway,
We'd probably be playing Emery if Paradox Engine got unbanned.
yeah. So Matt just explained why we're not on Painter's Servant. It makes all spells colorless, so or
it
colored.
makes all spells colored, so you don't have any.
Yeah, so
colorless spells
Ugin will
anymore.
never trigger.
And neither of Glaring Flushbreaker, which is sad. There's some amount of delay between when they say things and when we talk, so that's probably why I suggested it after I said it. But
Emery Lurker in the lock. Lurker of the lock. I mean, it's not the worst.
yeah, we're not really planning to put our own artifacts in the graveyard. Like, if we were
Yeah.
on Mishra's Bauble and Urza's Bauble, and we were trying to, like, do a bunch of cool stuff with baubles in general,
Right.
spell bombs, we might want to play Aether Spell Bomb just because of Urza Saga.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you were on instead of Tepazat, if we had gone with the Silas Ren option, Emery would be great in this deck because you want to be playing all those cards, and then Emery can loop them every turn and give you card advantage and all that. As it is, it's kind of like a bad impulse that will sometimes recur things that get blown up, or a Lotus Petal every turn, which makes it a bad mana dork instead. It's not a bad option if you want to be able to recover in that way, but none of the way that we're trying to build the deck and the way that you should probably build decks in general, especially Storm decks, is no one card should be so important that you need to recur it if it goes away. Obviously we're building our own Ugin, but Emery doesn't get him back anyway, and we do have plans for if we don't have Ugin. It's a fine card. I don't think we're going to play it, though. We are probably going to play the Artifact lands, though, because we do have Mox Opal in the deck now. I'm just going to slot those in here real quick. The originals, anyway. I don't know if we want to play any of the... comes into play tapped ones or, like, Treasure Vault or any of that.
Treasure Vault does take Kydel mana and filters it into color.
It does do that, and it gives us a bunch of artifacts for Clock of Omens for a couple of turns, I guess. Yeah, fine. Just because we have a lot of colorless anyway.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I could find how that dude just like exiled all my lands.
So Painter Servant doesn't work because it makes your spells not colorless, and Ugin only works when you cast colorless spells. So even if you make all of their lands red, you will not get to exile them with Ugin. Three of Tails, right? Did I forget that one? Yeah. Three of Tails, right here. Since it is a land, I know I just said all this stuff about recursion, but sometimes it's nice to have a little bit. Academy runes. Probably worth playing.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna fill in some lands real quick. I'll put in the bolt lands and we'll cut a few of them. We will throw in fetches and jocks, fails. We are ultimately probably only going to be playing like one of the surveil lands. I don't think we need to do it that frequently. We should be able to spend our mana pretty well most of the time. Which one we end up having kind of depends on where the deck ends up going, but right now it's kind of looking like green-blue. So at the moment, we're going to keep that one and cut the other two.
Sure. I agree.
Turn. Bolt lands, turn timber symbiosis. That's
well,
not really what we're doing.
That lost to the salt mine, I guess.
Someday you'll figure it out.
Someday.
Cycle Prayer Lease doesn't make a sense. Bridgeworks Battle, probably not that good here. Felder Profane's pretty good. Hydroelectric, we probably don't need. Seagate's pretty good though. Agadeems we probably don't need. So the bolt lands that we're probably playing are Felder Profane, Boggart Trawler, Sinking Stupor, and Seagate Restoration. Unless you have case for any of the others.
No. The issue with Tezzeret Master of the Bridge is that we well, I guess it does reduce both of our commanders. Actually, I don't really have a good reason other than maybe we don't want a bunch of 6-drops, but Master of the Bridge is pretty good. Yeah.
We'll put it in for now. I have had success with this card in the past, and it is another way to win the game if things aren't quite going your way. It's also recursion sometimes. And if you do manage to ult it, it can draw you a bunch of cards.
So, does some things. So.
It could also accidentally exile Ugin, which would make us sad, but again, not actually vital to our game plan, just nice to have. We might want to sweeper. Let's put in Toxic Deluge.
Oh, maybe it's maybe it was Distorting Lens. What does Distorting Lens do? Yes, we do want Toxic Deluge. That's only $4. Man, 2025 is wild.
They've been reprinting a lot of things.
That is not the card that they used.
It is a card we could play.
We're not playing that card.
It's pretty bad most of the time. I guess if we were like literally going all in on Ugin, finding it and all that, we would be doing that, but we'd probably be playing white for Arena Rector at that point.
Yeah, we'd play white for Arena Rector. It also allows us to just play Armageddon. I guess Bracket 3 means
Bracket 3 does not allow you to have Armageddon.
Also, I guess Bracket 3 we shouldn't be trying to exile people's lands with Ugin anyway, so because if we make a loop to do it, they don't have any lands anymore. Desi makes infinite mana with Lotus Petal and Displacer Kitten, but obviously that's set up.
That's fine. We got those cards in the deck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. I hardly ever minus Tezzeret, so and I've played a fair amount of Master of the Bridge, specifically in a Grixis Super Finite Friends deck I have. But anyway, okay, so where are we? 26 lands.
Yeah, I haven't put any basics yet.
Okay.
I also don't have.
I mean, we could play Tainted Pact.
Yeah,
I don't
problem
know.
with Tainted Pact specifically, if our plan is to do Ugin crimes, is that if Ugin's near the bottom of our deck, then ulting him doesn't do anything because we'll only have a limited percentage of our colors.
Well, we don't necessarily have to Tainted Pact to get the Ugin.
Yeah, that's true, but
we could Tainted Pact till we get to like
something we like.
Diabolic revelations.
Yeah, there we go.
Ugin with Bryn.
All right, Limdu's Vault.
Yeah, Limdu's Vault is probably better than Tainted Pact in the situation.
Yeah.
Ba-doop,
Speaking
boop,
of tutors,
ba-doop, boop, ba-doop. So finding Ugin.
we could play long-term plans. 8 plus our draw stat plus Tevish plus does get us there.
Yeah, I would like to see maybe some more card draw before we did that.
I mean, this card draw.
Yeah, well, Mystic Forge isn't card draw.
Well, in this case, it depends on what the cards above it are.
That is true.
Because it does allow you to cast Ugin, and it does exile one of them.
I actually wouldn't mind.
Crystal Skull is kind of not, though.
Yeah, I would actually not mind like Preordain and Ponder here because it'll allow us to run a leaner land count to support the future side effects.
Sure. They're also pretty good with Kaidel. You kind of turn blue mana into colorless mana and card selection, which is kind of neat.
True.
In addition to that, Brainstorm is a card that produces a bunch of mana with Kaidel and is famously pretty good with the Tameo that is in our deck.
Yes. Skull Clamp is I guess you could Skull Clamp
specifically Tevish and Fleshraker. The rest of the time, it's not doing a lot, and we're not going to be playing a ton of creatures apart from that. It is powerful.
Is that enough, though? That might be enough, honestly. Like Tevish.
We can get it off of Saga.
You can get it off of Saga. So,
yeah, sure.
I mean, that might, yeah, we can, I mean, always try it. So,
yeah, we might cut it later.
If you're building this deck along with us and you find out in your testing Skull Clamp sucks, cut it. So, but I think there is something to be said. It's also just an artifact to go with, like, Clock Omens.
Yes, so, that is true.
I mean, it's got some maybe not apparent upfront synergies with the deck, so I do like it.
Yeah, paradoxical outcome. Apart from drawing me 5 lands in the game that I played today, which I will never shut up about because the one time I actually put paradoxical outcome in the deck, it let me down. It's a lot better when you have more 0-drops or are cost reducing your artifacts. One of the reasons why it's so good in Vintage and to a lesser extent Legacy is that you make back the mana that you put into it, play it.
Yep.
In Vintage, you get all of your Moxen back and your Soul Ring and your Mana Vault and whatever. In addition to drawing the cards, and obviously you get to play all those cards again for free, gain into an additional paradoxical outcome, do all that fun stuff. In Legacy, it's more with like Coveted Jewel type things, but ramping out with Grim Monolith and a bunch of copy effects that are cheaper than the mana that they produce is kind of why that card works there as well. And that deck's also not like super tier 1 at the moment, or ever has been. If you're not Tony Scapone, you're probably not doing like super. That's maybe a little unfair, but I've tried playing it before and it did not work well. Anyway, but yeah, it's a lot better. I think it's a lot better in the deck that I was playing with Y'shtola than it is in here because we've only got 3 cost reducers and we're still like not entirely sold on necessarily playing Helm of Awakening and all that.
Yeah.
And since we've only got like 2 mana positive rocks, Mana Vault, well, 3.
Yeah.
Soul Ring and Opal.
Cost reducers are good when you are legitimately just trying to cheat on mana. The way I imagine this deck going from a play pattern perspective is that we lean into like Kaidel, Metalworker, and such, where you don't need to do that.
Yeah. But the point is that makes paradoxical outcome not
Correct. Yeah, it makes paradoxical because like at that point, if your
I
Kydel
guess
is making a bunch of mana where you can PO, odds like you could play.
Kydel does give you the mana for the number of cards you've drawn, which is something,
That is true. That is true.
but I don't think it's enough because, like, let's say you cast Paradoxical Outcome for 5 and you pick up 5 mana rocks, or like Felwar Stone, Golgari Signet, Boggart Trawler, Aether Spellbomb, and whatever. That's going to generate you 5 colorless mana, which you can use to recast like 3 of those cards, and that's probably all you're doing with it.
Yeah.
It's in order to get into a situation where it is actually like good, you have to like already have a lot of stuff in play. I think I don't know. Maybe I'm undervaluing it because it burned me so recently, but I don't think we want it.
Yeah, I played so with specifically Helm of Awakening, because I had a little bit of a PO synergy in that old Grixis deck I had. That was storm based when I was running Hercule Recall back in like 2015. And I mean it was like Grim Monolith, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, some talismans. So but it
Free
always
track.
netted me enough mana slash storm count. But I was more concerned about storm count in that deck than we are here. So it was a little bit better that way.
Yeah, because we're
Like
not playing a bunch of rituals and stuff.
correct. Yeah, playing PO is good when you care about recasting those cards for some reason. Um,
Which we do if we have
which we
Ugin in
do if
play.
we have Ugin in play, or if we're trying to get to like a rad storm. Um, we could potentially play Mind's Desire to cheat on mana and stuff, but the issue with Mind's Desire and Commander is that you have to get to a pretty obscene uh,
Storm count.
storm count in order to make that card worth it because you play lands in the deck. However, we're probably going to end up on like 27, 28 lands. So
That's ambitious, but maybe.
yeah, just we'll see. My goal is to have us like sub 32 lands. Because we should already be running a lower land count in order to maximize the Mystic Forge effects. So that does make cards like Mind Desire and Bolas' Citadel better. Um,
Yeah.
so which would automatically make PO better because you're running less lands. So
Blind Seer does let you destroy lands. We're
that
not
is
going that
not the
deep
card that's on Arena, but
either.
yeah.
For Felithar, it depends on how much you don't like the people you're playing with. I would do it because I think that decks like Felithar need ways to slow your opponents down. If you have enough stacks ways to make it so that they are playing as slowly as you are, you have a much better chance of winning. Especially things like Meekstone and whatever that you can just slot in the deck without much issue. Um, but yeah, it kind of depends on the room and what everyone else is doing. Like, if you're doing it to make everyone miserable, like, that kind of depends on how much you want to make everyone miserable. But for optimal play patterns, I would say yes. Can we afford 3 black pips for Beseech? Not currently. We
Yeah,
are mostly colorless, and we're kind of building out our deck to take advantage of the fact that Kydel makes colorless mana.
right.
If we have specifically Chromatic Orrery, or if we go real hard into black, we could do that. Right
Well,
now, black is our least populous color, I
yeah.
think.
Or if we play effects like,
It's
well, it's
actually green.
technically green, but
Yeah.
out of the blue black, black is least. Um, if we play, because I was actually just thinking about that for the mana base. I was like, oh, what if we just like
We could play Rebar.
focus on
And out because we are currently less green. This doesn't.
um, what are we doing? ISO red. So that is not a bad idea.
Yeah. Isorev is probably a good thing to do with your Kaidel, especially with your One Rings. Dramatic Reversal is a card that is just good in the deck. Isochron Scepter, maybe a little less so. It doesn't really do anything if you don't have uh, Dramatic Reversal, and Isochron Scepter is the easier piece to find. I would probably play it. We kind of already have a bunch of different end game goals, so if you're going to put Isorev in the deck, I'd probably cut either Hullbreaker Horror or like something.
Yeah, I agree with the whole breaker horror comment. I mean, technically, you can probably cut Staff of Domination too, but like the issue, so Staff of Domination not only makes you the mana as it does its thing with Kaidel, it also just draws your deck. So I don't think that's a card that you should be cutting from this deck. But a whole breaker horror is it produces like the main reason it's in there is because it produces more mana, but then it also has the off shoot to be able to exile everybody's non-land permanents with Ugin out.
That
If
is
you
just an impressive card if you just happen to have it play.
Yeah. I can see a world where Dramatic Reversal and Isochron Scepter are probably better than Hullbreaker Horror because they're not 7 mana.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're a little bit easier to get.
and the um, depending on what we have, so like for instance, you can put a brainstorm under Isochron Scepter and then start untapping it with Clock of Omens, depending on how much mana and stuff you have, which will then produce more mana with Kaidel, things of that nature. Like, yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't like do a whole lot, but it gives you +3 mana with Kaidel.
Take a look at our instance right now. And I mean, like, it would be a good reason to put more in here, but
Yeah.
Dwindle's fault. Wall stick, there we go.
Yeah, it
Clock
doesn't.
spinning is kind of funny.
Yeah, clock
For
spinning is not
reasons,
bad. Um,
but we don't have a ton of instances at
we
the moment.
don't.
I guess we probably do want to run a few more, like um, Nature's Claim,
Yeah,
perhaps.
Nature's Claim is a good one. I mean, honestly, we could probably just run Dramatic Reversal by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Swan Song's fine. We should probably have the wait, no, that's a game changer. The free First Guardianship is a game
Oh, yeah,
changer,
no.
so
Misdirection isn't. I don't know if we have enough blue cards. Neither is Force of Negation. I don't know if we have enough blue cards. We might, though. I'll put them in. Neither of them works under Isochron Scepter, but
I
Negation.
wouldn't play Force Negation. Specifically because Force Negation's a very reactive card. It doesn't
I'm not
really
trying to do that.
help.
Fair.
Uh,
I mean, Misdirection is as well.
yeah, but Misdirection you can play on your turn
That's true.
for free.
Do we want Flusterstorm? We probably want Flusterstorm.
Flusterstorm isn't bad. I would probably play Mana Drain before I play. It's fine, but I would play Mana Drain too. I don't think we're so deep to want Plasm Capture, so I'll just keep my mouth shut about that. But
Yeah, Mana Drain as a way to get Ugin into play is definitely something that you
yep,
can do.
I think that's what I was actually thinking of before the put Ugin into play plan. I was like,
Sure.
oh, we should probably play Mana Drain.
Yeah. But yes, we put Staff in here, or Isochron Scepter. Do we still want Hullbreaker?
I mean, I like the plan, but like we have enough colorless spells where we can probably just chain them naturally without Hullbreaker.
Yeah, it is reasonable interaction if you can get into play, and we do have ramp,
Yeah,
so maybe it's fine. We'll
we can
table
like,
looking,
try it. Yeah.
cutting it later. That would be Flare of Denial, and you need a blue non-token creature specifically, which we don't really want to sack our commander. And the other blue non-token creatures we have are also pretty good.
Yeah.
You could theoretically sack Ethereum Sculptor or whatever, but
Right.
like the other ones are all probably worth more than Flare of Denial most of the time.
Yeah.
Group by text. Okay. So, we are 89 cards, of which 26 are conceivably lands, none of which are basics at the moment.
We should add at least 2 basics. Three. I could see us running. Yeah, I don't know if we run a forest base. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess we probably don't need it.
Yeah. We
I
only care about casting our commander, but our commander is also a
I always like to have one in just because late game wooded foothills will very frequently just fail to have targets if you already got your breeding pool.
that's true. Yeah, I mean that's fine. We can run it.
Yeah.
And
And
that means we're at 29 lands,
yeah,
which is
we got
good.
one of each.
Okay, so let's talk about smoothing early game because we still have 8 slots. So some of those slots can be helping. So when you're running fewer lands like this, we can probably end up putting like 1 or 2 more lands in there, but to make sure you're still hitting your land drops on time in the early stages of the game, you need cards like Ponder and Preordain that allow you to dig for those lands off the top of your deck. Otherwise, like just playing fewer lands for the sake of playing fewer lands will not help you stay consistent as far as hitting your land drops
It will
and
bite
powering
you.
out spells. It will bite you. So being able to have some early game plays, green is actually fairly good at that. I don't really know if we're on ancient stirrings, but cards of that ilk allow you to play a lower land count because they can become a land in most cases. Um, what's the card I play in Jugen? 13 Roots is a 1 mana sorcery that either proliferates or allows you to get a basic land from your deck and put it in your hand. So think cards of that nature allow you to cheat on land count.
Yeah, with us being skewed slightly towards black and blue, we probably don't want to play a lot of like the green cantrips,
Yeah.
but the blue ones are pretty good.
So we could like we're playing the best ones right now. I don't think there's anything better than that. I don't think we're on opt or anything.
We could play sleight of hand. It's fine.
Is that better? Is sleight of hand better than opt?
Sleight of hand lets you look at more cards.
Sure.
It's not an instant, it lets you look at more cards. Opt is better because it's an instant. Consider's better if you care about the graveyard. Other than that, it's basically opt. Um, Serum Visions, if you have lots of ways to draw cards beyond Serum Visions, is fine, but it's probably a lot worse than like the ones.
Yeah. Sleight of hand. So looking at more cards is the key here because we want to make sure if we're hitting land drops or if our goal is to hit land drops, we should be trying to do that.
The best cantrip,
Lorien Revealed. Sure. Yes, we could be running that. That we have in the land section for some reason.
Land. It comes into play tap land.
It should probably be a cantrip, but yeah, that's fine.
It's card draw.
Okay. Sure.
It's a comes into play tap land. It's basically you spend a mana to get an untapped land. It is same as having a land that comes into play tap.
Yeah, no, I get the
Sort of
the thing, but I mean, and with that, under that mindset, it's the same as like a Ponder or a Preordain. But I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
What's counterspell that you sack a non-token?
I answered that already. That
Okay, sounds good.
The thing.
Um,
Okay, we got 7 more cards to fill. We currently have 2 ways to get rid of enchantments: Beseiju and Nature's Claim. Do we care about more? We probably want.
we can put Enter the Flood Wall.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Oh, nice. Great minds and all that.
Yeah. Other alternatives.
Oh, I guess it's not Enter then.
Into
Into the Flood Wall.
Into
Enter the Flood Wall.
Enter the dungeon. So Enter the Flood Maw is, well, I guess no, this doesn't hit. Oh, it does.
It
Okay.
does. Yep.
I forgot these things and these sort of count. Into the Flood Maw is a nice little catch-all. We don't really care if they have a tapped fish, and being able to bounce anything for 1 mana is pretty neat. Alternatives to that, we could play Geist Wave if we wanted to bounce our own stuff, reset our Pithing Needle, etc. This draws us a card. We could play Chain of Vapor if we don't care about our stuff getting bounced, which we
Kind of do.
But it lets us bounce a bunch of our stuff if we want to replay it.
Right.
And Ash Barrens, so we're only playing 3 basics in the deck. And also it being a land already means that if we were going to play Ash Barrens, we could just play some other better land. Oh yeah, Command Tower is probably a land we want to play.
I guess.
But like Inventor's Fair and Spire of Industry and Mana Confluence and City Brass are all better than Ash Barrens, and we are not doing
I mean,
any
we
of
can
those
play
right now.
Inventor's Fair.
Yeah, we could. How many lands do you want to play?
Well, right now we don't have any other. Like, we still need 5 cards, and have some of those aren't lands
We can
anyway.
fill those in pretty quick.
Yeah.
The sorta,
Yeah.
I guess.
So they're lands, but like
Sure.
we have the option of them not being lands. So
You're the one that was saying like 28 lands.
I
I'm
know,
just
like
saying-
28 actual lands.
Sure. Yeah, Exotic Orchard is another one that's worth playing if we were looking for more lands to add. We're not really looking for more lands to add, though.
We're probably gonna stop right here as far as the land ads.
Yeah.
We can try to be on, like, at that point, being on Bolas's Citadel isn't bad.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's another.
It's a game changer.
Oh, what? Okay. No,
Yeah.
I know. That's fine.
It's too strong.
Yeah, it's
Also,
pretty strong.
Purple Black's a little rough, but at 6 mana, it's a little more doable. I guess since part of our 6 mana is probably going to be in colorless, it's not that good. Anyway, back on Ash Barrens. It's better if you can recur it. It's better if you have a lot of basics. It's better if you need more color fixing than you have. And we don't really need any of that, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree.
If this was a loam deck, it would be worth considering.
Good old loam.
Good old loam.
Alright, so.
Okay, so one card that I think would be worth playing, hear me out, is... what's the name of it? I just had it. Lava Spur Boots.
Don't get. That gives haste. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Play it up.
Lava Spur Boots, for those of you who are not familiar with it,
Uninitiated.
the uninitiated, it gives +1/+0 haste and Ward 1. Ward 1's neat, but when it's only Ward 1, it's more of an annoyance than an actual like way to protect your commander or what have you. Haste is important because Kydel and Metalworker both care about that. It's a 1-mana artifact, which means that we can find it off of Urza's Saga. And, yeah, it's just a 1-mana artifact, so it's something that we can have in play. Material for the Pocket Omens, or what have you.
I was thinking about the reality chip. I think that's not the worst
Yeah, sure, why not?
suggestion. Because it's an actual future side effect other than the half future side effect of the other two.
I'm gonna
So-
do this in a minute. More importantly, here it is.
Oh, sure. Okay, you got it. Anyway.
Very
So,
important.
but yes, the reality chip is good. No, not only Unstoppable Plan is in step, right?
Yeah.
Screw all that. Yeah, it's basically Wilderness Reclamation for non-lands cards. Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm good on that.
We don't really need Swiftfoot Boots because we have cheaper Swiftfoot boots. We have Swiftfoot boots at home. Um, the one additional mana maintenance that we can't find it off of Urza's Saga, and the fact that it gives hexproof is nice, but as much as we are planning to utilize our commander, it is not central to our game plan, and given that it does not give our other commander or our Ugin hexproof, yeah, we kind of don't need it. Plus, this being a blue deck, if we really need to protect our commander from targeted removal, we can do that. That's what these are for.
That is what those are for.
Few addition.
I mean, we could run
Stock up.
Sylvan. We could run stock up.
Stock ups are pretty cool. We could run Sylvan Scrying, we could run Stock Up, we could run Fabricate, we could run. I don't like Reshape, but we could run Word of Invention. Word of Invention's like pretty neat.
Yeah, we should probably be on Word.
We could run additional ways to find Ugins, such as Cruel Tutor or Grim Tutor, not
Grim
Cruel
Tutor,
Tutor.
yeah.
Cruel Tutor is not.
That's a little deep.
Not the truth. We could run Grim Tutor. We could run.
Do we want Merchant Scroll?
I
I don't think just having dramatic reversal is worth it, but like maybe it is. Oh, we should be on Muddle. I forgot about that. So maybe Muddle's better than is. Well, I guess we have a fair amount of blue cards now, so Misdirection's probably fine to stay.
Yeah, plus it gives us additional things for our blue cards.
Yeah.
Model mixture's fine, I guess.
Yeah, so let's just do that.
It being a tutor for either half of dramatic reversal, which again is not like actually our game plan, but it's fine.
Yeah, it gives us. We have a fair amount of 2-drops. Like
Speaking
Sylvan,
of,
like it gets Sylvan
let's look at this
Library.
view real quick. 31 artifacts is fine, maybe a little low.
A little low. All right.
Yeah.
For what? Because if we're just
Spyglass and things.
yeah, so if we're just on that, we could probably cut one of those effects because we do have the reality chip.
Spyglass.
But
Spyglass taps for blue, but the
does tap for mana.
Mystic Forge is generally better because it allows you to select cards.
That is kind of true. Yeah.
And you can untap it sometimes.
I guess it depends on what you value more, chat. If you value the card selection or if you value the extra mana, we can cut the Crystal Orb. But it is, I will say, Crystal Skull is a blue card.
It is a blue card,
like
actually,
Misdirection
yeah.
stuff. So
I mean, we could keep them in. Maybe it's fine. Crystal Skull also lets us play any historic thing, which includes like Minamo and the Seiju and things. It doesn't let us channel the Seiju, but it lets us play Oko and Tezzeret and all those things.
The reality chip is an artifact. So is Ethereum Sculptor. So is Tamio. Like it,
yeah.
I don't know.
I guess it's probably
Metal Worker,
fine.
well, no, Glarian's not. Whatever. But
yeah, it doesn't let you cast Glaring Flush Raker, but
yeah.
Vidalcan Archmage.
Whatever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card. That dude. I think with how we're building the deck, I mean, it probably would do some work, but like, I feel like playing larger shot draw effects, like
Wait, take it to 100. How did that happen?
This guy.
Like a couple short. Oh, whatever.
No. We had like one more to put in, and then you did it with the whatever last thing you put in. So I mean, we can test it out, see what's happening.
Yeah, let's try fishing it a little bit. We're probably not going to spend too much time on this because it is reaching the 2-hour mark already. But this hand has no lands. So
yeah.
This one has Ugin, which is half the battle already. Helm of Awakening is pretty neat with top. They are good friends. Helm of Awakening also lets us cast our commanders quicker. We cannot currently cast either of our commanders because we don't have enough mana, and this is probably not going to get green.
I'd probably keep this because
Yeah,
on the
I mean,
strength
I would
of
keep it.
Sensei's top.
Top's
Yeah.
pretty good.
So you draw a card and never punished. All right.
Okay, so that changes the game plan. The game plan is now, because before I was just going to fetch a Surveil land, but, or maybe not. Maybe you play top first.
Yeah, I
but
think you
can
play top.
shuffle. But now we do this because this means that.
Sure.
So now we have the game has changed. We have a couple of options here. We can either go get Watery Grave and cast Tevish, because turn 2 Tevish is busted, let me tell you that. Or we can play turn 2 One Ring, because turn 2 One Ring is also busted. If we do One Ring, we can also play Helm and Top, if we want to.
I think
It probably depends a little bit on the board state, but like
Yeah.
generically speaking,
generically Tevish is probably
Tevish is
better
probably
because
better.
it doesn't cost you life.
I don't know if that's a big enough reason when you start at 40, but yeah, fair. Our deck is a little bit more synergy with the One Ring though, like the keys and things.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe we do One Ring.
Okay. Well, I'm still gonna go get Watery Grave.
Sure.
Because then we can tap 2 for Helm of Awakening, unless the room says that we shouldn't for reasons.
The One Ring does draw you more cards faster.
Sure does.
So to
So
get
we're
to
gonna draw a
your
card.
other land.
Neat. Here's this. Also for free, which is why we did it this way. You doesn't untap. Turn 3. It's a tomato. Hey, guess what? We've already drawn a card this turn. Let's draw 2 more. Loop. Plus it, because that's kind of all it does at this point. I guess now we can get the Surveil land. Well, first we're gonna spin the top. See if we want to fetch or not.
Sure.
Because there are certain things that we would not want to fetch away
Oh,
necessarily.
Right. You have everything.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we probably put Spellbomb on top so that we can draw. Well, I guess we're gonna pull in a minute.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So we play the Tree of Tales and then go to our next turn.
Yeah, we'll play Tree of Tales. We'll have it to spin again if we need to.
Just win.
People are gonna attack the Tameo because Tameo's scary,
Yeah.
and then next turn we're like, oh look guys, I can just spend draw 3 cards first. Play a land so that we can have offer up. Pay 1 for this, because we can, pay 3 for this, win the game.
Yeah.
Do whatever we want.
Basically. So you draw your deck with top and Mystic Forge, right? And then because you have the Helm, it's free, so you keep drawing cards until we have enough mana to I mean honestly at that point we just get the mana and then we can Isochron Scepter into literally whatever we want. So
yeah, because we only need 3 mana. So basically, we're digging for a key here. And since these are kind of free, we can probably flip them into play, but maybe not. It's possible that once we find misdirection, did we have this the whole time? Have we just been sitting on?
Yeah, we've just been sitting on that, but we didn't have enough mana to do the thing. So.
Well, we could have done it instead of
the One Ring. Yeah, probably
instead of this. a Mystic Forge.
Oh yes, we could.
Yeah.
But once I thought of it, like it at
Yeah.
that point, it doesn't
It
matter what you do.
really doesn't matter what you do at that point. Blah 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 blah. Produce some more mana. We can use this to play Ethereum Sculptor.
The game has changed. The game has changed.
Now,
Yes.
well, that was already free, but a lot of these are free now. All of our talismans.
Oh.
Blah 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 blah. Okay, that was a turn 4 kill. We didn't do anything with it. Let's do that once more. This hand is a much slower hand. It doesn't produce any blue mana, but it does have a Sylvan Library, which is a very good card.
Yeah, it's the Sylvan Library into a potentially a Everflowing Chalice that will get proliferated off this Radstorm. Like, it's not the worst.
Yeah, we'll try it for science.
Off the strength of Silver.
Easy.
Sure. Okay.
Never didn't have it. Okay. Turn 2, we could play the Chalice first.
Yeah.
Now that we have mana. It's probably worth doing. Again, depends on what the board state is. Maybe you need to go
Yeah,
hard,
I could
but-
see an argument if you're trying. Well, because you have the Nature's Claim, you don't necessarily need to keep the Beseiju. And at this point, if you don't draw a land behind this Displacer Kitten, you untap and you slam your Kaidel.
Yep.
So
We didn't,
Yeah.
so we'll do this. Kaidel is obviously... Kaidel would prefer to have Sylvan Library in play, but if we had played Sylvan Library, we wouldn't get to play Kaidel this turn, so...
yeah.
Eh.
I guess you could play Sylvan Library and the Reality Chip.
We could do that instead of
instead
Kaidel.
Because either like Kaidel is slow enough where whether you play Sylvan Library first or you play her first, either way you have to wait a turn.
Yeah.
So
The benefit of playing Kaidel specifically is if we high roll into, I guess, Brainstorm,
sure.
then we can cast Chromatic Orrery and do all kinds of things,
Yep.
but that seems like kind of a stretch. So we probably have to do that next turn anyway.
Yeah.
So we'll do this. We can start looking at our top card, but we can't play it yet. That is a land.
Okay.
So we'll play land, and then
Or well, we should.
oh yeah,
Sylvan,
we should
yeah.
probably Sylvan. We're not really
Doesn't
ready for
do
power
anything
transference,
yet,
and we
yeah.
can't double black anyway. I mean, soon. But like, whatever. We got cards in hand. We got life. It's commander.
Sure.
No one can hurt me now. Play Treasure Vault. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got a Kaidel.
Keep up Nature's Claim in case we need it.
Yep.
Now, let's say one of these green sources or that treasure vault was a blue source, another blue source. You could have kept the biotransference on top and shuffle it away with the ponder.
Yep.
So you had some options there,
But depending, well, again, it depends on how much pressure you're under and all that. But
Right.
generally in Commander, you're fine to pay life a few times.
yeah.
So
Generally, if I have an early Sylvan Library, my first turn after that, I just put 3 cards in my hand and change my life total. I don't even look at them. So.
nice. Yeah, good luck with that. That sounds pretty cool. Chico's neat.
Sure.
I liked Brent's take on it, and I might explore that deck at some point.
Again, I'm a fan of anything that lets you play Song of the World Soul. So
Okay, turn 5. We've drawn 3 cards this turn. Thank you, Sylvan Library.
yep.
We could tap Kaidel for 3 now if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So our options include play this land, and then like go ham, look for something sweet. we could 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 play this thing, and then have 5 mana left or 6 mana left to do whatever we want. We can attach the reality chip so that we can clock spinning our ever-flowing chalice.
I do believe the play is to play the chromatic orrery into the displacer kitten.
Yes, that sounds good. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess it kind of doesn't matter at this point because
Yeah, because it's chromatic orrery.
Yeah. Assuming that we think this is going to resolve, we would probably keep this one up because it has a higher upside.
Yeah.
We play the chromatic orrery, we tap it for 5, down to 1.
Play the
Ponder.
probably. Yep.
Blink this. Look at the top 3. 1, 2, 3. Hey, look, it's preordained.
Sure.
That's pretty cool.
Skull Clamp doesn't do anything. Or I
Skull
guess
Clamp blinks.
Skull Clamp blinks and then allows us to float mana for our commander.
Yeah. We're gonna put them back. We're gonna put clock spinning on the bottom, even though it is potentially useful this turn. We're gonna do this. Draw up to 5 mana, down to 4, untap. We can look at both of these again and say, yeah, those are fine. Draw this up to 9 mana.
Play the commander.
Play Tevish,
Blink.
down to 4. Blink this. 9 again. Cast Skull Clamp. Down to 8. Blink.
Yep.
With 8 mana,
Oh, I guess we could dramatic or diabolic revelation.
we could Diabolic Revelation. We could make more mana. We should probably make more mana first. Okay. Up to 13. Down to 11.
Is biotransference all creatures or token creatures?
All creatures.
Ooh wee. Okay. So diabolic revelation should get Ugin and Clock of Omens. And then maybe like a counter spell or something for protection. At this point, if they're letting us do all this, they probably don't have anything anyway.
So what I was going to get to is we can equip the reality chip and then buy back clock spinning a bunch of times to make infinite mana.
Yeah, I mean that also works.
And it makes Tevish go into alt range so you can steal it from its commanders, which is very funny. Yes, buyback does do it. And then we can go get whatever we want. We can tutor for our entire deck.
Yes.
Which is probably a winning play.
It's just sorcery Ugin, so
yeah. We go and we get Ugin, and then no, we probably just win the game however we want to.
Yep.
Turn 5?
Yikes.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I am pretty happy with this deck. There's definitely some tuning to do. It feels like a lot of the cool cards we put in have been ignored in the hands that we've drawn, but we've only fished it twice.
Right.
So.
The lines that we have played or have pursued. So because I've been playing decks like this for a long time, some of the routes that we've taken in these last 2 hands, I've also just thought of or seen other routes that we could take as well. So I'm not super sold on Hullbreaker Horror based on what I've seen from the deck in the 2 hands, but like Matt said, it's only been 2 hands.
Yeah, it's been 2 hands. We can tune it a little bit.
Yeah.
Hullbreaker Horror would be a lot better too if we had more just like creature tutors.
Right.
I think.
Which, I mean, we're in green, so if you want to skew more towards creatures, you can add some stuff in there, but...
They did just put Worldly Tutor on the no-no list, but... it's, like, a little weird that there's no just, like, black-green, find a creature, put it in your hand, or in your graveyard, or something. Because, like, black tutors for anything, and green tutors for creatures. There's, like, dig up and...
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, so
Um,
whole burger horror, I think it might just be a little outside of the realm of like masterful
yeah, it might not be
stuff.
necessary. You
Yeah.
might be going a little too deep.
Yeah, I like Tezzeret more. Um,
That does it.
yeah, that Tezzeret more than Holberg. Like I think they kind of fill the same spot as far as potential combos. Granted, Tezzeret needs Displacer Kitten to do some
Sure.
like to really go like
Here's
hit
something we
there,
could
but
do. We're not gonna test it out anymore because
yeah, you're
the stream is
satisfied.
ending.
Yeah.
But so a card that I was not very high on, but I've kind of come around on is Lively Dirge.
Yes.
And you may be asking, but wait, we're not a graveyard deck. How is that useful in any way? So if you squint, it is Green Sun Zenith for any 4-drop, which includes Displacer Kitten, which is pretty good in this deck.
Flex Channeler.
Yeah, it gets Flex Channeler, it gets Glaring Flush Raker, it gets, I guess, Metal Worker,
Squint.
Ethereum Sculptor if you really want to. But it's just like, I don't know how often you're just going to be dumping something in your graveyard unless you have one of these other recursion pieces
Right, I was gonna
already,
say like
but
it also works with the other recursion pieces,
yeah,
but yeah, it is that's a good way to put it is a Green Sun Zenith for features mana value 4 or less.
yeah. So that's actually pretty reasonable. I think it's probably worth playing, especially when we have ways to spend mana most of the time.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's better than Holberger, or it gives you a little bit more consistency.
Yeah.
Cards to potentially look out for or that are on my kind of no list. Well, we already cut Holberger Horror. Um, Potentially, I know I just talked up Tezzeret Master of the Bridge, but depending on your own play patterns, he might not like he might be better suited for another deck. And the only other one that I can remember, Skull Clamp might be a little iffy.
Yeah, Skull Clamp's worth keeping an eye on. Doubling
Yeah.
Season's worth keeping an eye on.
Right.
It has some high upside, but I don't know. The Diabolic Revelation is extremely mana hungry, and if you find yourself not getting up there, that might be worth cutting.
Yeah,
It's very good if you can get there, though.
Yeah, it's very good if you can get there, or increasing ambition might be worth not playing as well.
Increasing ambition's also kind of
yeah, those two. As long as you consistently have a bunch of mana, those two are very good hit cards. But if you, because of maybe your pod, your meta interaction that's played, if Kaidel's continuing to get blown up, things of that nature, you might want to look at alternative options to those two cards.
Yeah, and if you also find yourself kind of running into that kind of stuff, Spellskite, Malevolent Hermit, that weird Thopter thing from Aether Drift that you can sack to counter a spell, all reasonable ways to keep your commander alive.
Yeah.
Beyond these few pieces here.
And green has a bunch of ways. If you want to pursue maybe a deck that's heavier in green, you get Heroic Intervention, Tamiyo's Safekeeping, if you didn't say that already.
The good one is Legolas's Quick Reflexes, because it untaps your commander, and you can also use it to just like doink a Collector Roof or something.
Right. So
and it's got a split second.
You got some options there too. So but yeah, I think this deck is pretty funny. So
yeah, I think we did pretty well. Probably one of the better decks we've built on the channel.
Probably. All our decks have been bangers. What?
Yes.
Looks at that Esper Cycling deck.
Yes, that's a great deck. But yeah, I think this went pretty well. I hope those of you who watch this, which is probably everyone if you're this far into the video, liked it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. We have a Patreon. You are welcome to join that if you'd like. Gives you access to the Discord and lets you pester us about deck stuff.
Yes.
We will probably be back next week, doing something. I don't know. Maybe we'll look at Shiko. There's some cool Shiko things. Maybe we'll do something else. Maybe Final Fantasy will have enough spoilers at that point that we get to look more of that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, there's that Tifa that just got spoiled, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, am I gonna build another Naya deck?
Tifa is pretty cool.
Throw
the
some
fact that
hands.
the fact that you get to melee it as a 10/10 and as a 7/7 and then untap it and have it be a 10/10 is pretty neat. They probably designed it that way.
Straight putting some hands to. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So we'll see you next time if you're here, and if not, then we won't. Okay, bye.
Oh my gosh.